Hi, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with, and our guest today is Professor Cormany. So, thank you so much for being with us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Uh, I know that you've been spearheading a lot of the things that are changing in the world of hospitality and in the industry of events. But please first tell us a little bit about yourself for those of you who don't know you.
All right. I teach at Florida International University in the Chaplain School of Hospitality and Tourism Management. I am the lead professor for events management, and we are starting an entertainment management degree as of next August. So that will be something else that will be under us too. We also have, and this is a bit of a commercial, but we also have a master's program in mega events management that we run too. We have about 1,700 students in the whole school. Of that, about 1,400 are undergraduate, the rest are graduate. And of those 1,400, about 60 to 70% are interested in events of some sort. So we have a large group here that are focused on studying events.
Impressive. All the people that want to get into the event industry at this point.
You know, we have not had a drop off that you might have expected from uh, people interested in events. When the pandemic hit, we anticipated quite a drop, but I think that they are uh, believing that we will get past this, that it may be a year, but we'll get past this and events are going to, in some very respectable way, come back. Maybe not exactly as they were before, but we'll be coming back to the same size as the events beforehand.
Well, I would think that this would be the perfect opportunity for someone that wants to study this field, is at this point.
You know, there's a lot of truth to that because there are some skills that are having to be learned for people who have been in the field for 20 years. They're having to learn new skills. Our students are learning those skills as well. So when the events do begin returning in numbers, the skills that our students have hopefully will be uh, comparable to some of the skills that the experienced event planners have. Things like technology and guest services are areas that are being expanded right now that uh, weren't as focused. They were certainly present, but they weren't as focused before the pandemic as they are right now in the events world.
So let me ask you something. There are some people that are moving forward with certain events without even considering what's going on. And for example, they're saying, okay, it's just my family. Instead of having 100 people event, I'm having a wedding of 25 to 30 people without even taking into consideration the pandemic that we're going through. So, what's your take on that?
Well, you put your finger on it. It's not just those 25 people who are attending the event who may choose to attend because they're family members, but you have decorators, you have caterers, you have the officiant for the wedding, uh, you have perhaps entertainers or MCs. All those people are being potentially exposed. And this isn't something that we can just say, well, we'll take the risk because you're putting other people at risk as well. And I'm frankly rather concerned about this because we all want to get back to events. We all want to get back to life as it was to some degree before the pandemic hit. A lot of people need to in order to be able to financially survive. So I appreciate the stress and the pressure they're under. But I think if we rush this and we end up uh, spiking again in COVID cases, we're going to be right back to where we were before and another 3 or 4 months down the road. Uh, I'm not a politician. I'm not going to say exactly what the answer is, but I do think that we need to be particularly careful right now. We need to get this under control before we get too far into bringing back events, whether they are conferences or weddings or festivals. There needs to be some consideration. There are some ways of doing it that are somewhat safe, but the difficulty is that will everyone who attends honor those safeguards? An example was about 3 weeks ago, the Meeting Professionals International had their international meeting in outside of Dallas, Texas. They had about 1,700 people there. And they were looking to demonstrate how to do meetings in the safest possible way. And they did a very, very good job from what I understand and what I've read. But there were still people there that refused to wear masks and just refused to kind of follow the guidelines that were necessary for this to be done completely safely. And I think to myself, if these are meeting planners and there are some people who aren't willing to take the precautions, what does that mean for the regular attendees? We have a number of people who just absolutely feel that it's a violation of their rights to be asked to wear a mask or stay 6 feet away. And these are the people that we will be coming back to events. And that's what worries me, is the people that we really can't persuade and are going to come and turn events into spreader events, I'm afraid.
Well, now you touched on two very good points, because when you said entertainment, the catering, just in my mind, adding it really fast, I added at more than 100 people at one event. So the 25 to 30 family event is now more than 100 people. So that's what we need to take into consideration.
I'm not sure of the numbers, but I would agree with you that the people who are feeling pressed to do events because of finances, I really feel for them. And I don't mean to be criticizing them. I'm more concerned about the people who are deciding to organize events and hire these people, because I think they need to think about the impact that their decision is going to have, not only on their guests, but also on all the other people that they have to bring to one place in order to produce the event.
To make it happen. So that's the other point. We as event planners and as event producers, we go into that thin line of becoming the super spreaders, because we are enabling that part.
You know, I think something like the Meeting Professionals International Conference that I referred to earlier, I think that they took adequate precautions to keep it from being a super spreader event, but they still had the possibility of virus being spread because of some of the people who were choosing not to participate.
Correct. And now that you touched on the masks, today I put something on Facebook about masks. I remember when I was little, my dad used to be a surgeon. And when he had this very, very long surgeries, he came home with the mask, just like the marks of the mask in his face, when the surgery was like 10 hours long. And he was protecting himself, he was protecting the patients. And if this is dangerous, then we wouldn't have doctors or nurses. They would have all died back then. And now we have all these people saying that it's against their violation of rights. Well, on the other hand, when the car seat was put into effect just to save lives, it took years of education and really big, hefty fines for people to understand that they were saving lives. The problem now is that we don't have years.
Well, and the other thing is that seatbelt was saving your life. And if you chose not to wear it, you were putting yourself at risk. But when you choose not to wear a mask, you're putting other people at risk too. And so I think it's a more critical element right now that people choose to wear masks. Another element that we haven't touched on is that in some regions of the country, there are limitations on how many people can be brought together. And the private events like weddings can sometimes slide under the radar, but those are still creating a liability for the event planner who's putting these together too, because they are in some cases violating the standards of that region or that city or that state.
But let me ask you something. In some of the states where they're putting a limit on events, they're saying, okay, the event has to be less than 50 people. What happens with the rest of the production people? They're not counting as part of the event?
No, they're not. No, they're not. Much of the production is being done prior to the event to kind of separate out some of the production folks from the actual attendees. But you still have the catering people. If you have anything with sound and lights, you still have those people who are needing to be on site at the time of the event. So, and those, as far as I know, are not being counted. What they're looking at is the total number of attendees. I may be wrong on that, but I've not run across anywhere where the catering people, the AV people, the additional support people are being added into those numbers.
Is there anyone now regulating or doing some kind of standard rules for the event production?
There is the Event Industry Council, EIC for short, is an umbrella association that 34 different organizations like Meeting Professionals International and the International Live Events Association and the National Association of Catering and Events, 34 different organizations subscribe to or are a part of this. And they have put out some standards. They are standards, though, that are not with enforceability. They are more recommendations of how to put together an event. They are well done standards. It would be good if everyone followed them, but there is no teeth to that. It's simply a matter of recommendations. And as you alluded to earlier, it depends on the part of the country too, because the pockets that are really hot, so to speak, for COVID right now keep moving around, and so there needs to be some monitoring, not just when the event is booked, but also what's happening now that we're coming close to the event. Something that a city that may have had no problem at all when the event was booked now may be in a real crisis situation. I would hope, maybe this is being too optimistic, but I would hope that as desperate as people are in the events industry to get back to work, that they would take a little bit of a deep breath and honor the guidelines that are being offered for them to do the event safely. And that includes enforcing people who are attending that don't want to honor the 6-foot rule or the mask rule. There are ways that we can do this depending upon how big the event budget is. There are bracelets that are available now that if I get closer than 6 feet to you, the bracelet changes color. It's green until Maybe I get to 6 feet, then it turns yellow, and if I get closer than that, it turns red. So it's warning me that this is not something I should be doing. There are also bracelets. The very same bracelets can also be fitted so that they will record that you and I came into contact with each other. So if there is any contact tracing to be done afterwards, we would know that the two of us have been in contact with one another. So there are ways that technology is developing really quickly in order to support some degree of events, but it still requires the people who are participating to honor them, and for the event planner to make the additional investment in money in order to be able to support the equipment. It may not be technology, it may be simply the way that the room is laid out, and the distancing and arrows on the floor so people know where they're to be going and people aren't passing like ships in the night and possibly spreading the virus that way. There are a number of things that we can do to get some events back and operating to a maybe not a normal level, but that would allow some events to continue. But we still have that wild card of the people who are attending, either honoring or not honoring those restrictions.
What about testing before the event? Like requiring everybody to test, or even not requiring or having a rapid test a day before the event so that we know that everybody that has been tested is negative, and then you can feel a little more secure.
They did that a version of that with the Meeting Professionals International. Like I said, they did a nice job of putting the meeting together. Simply a matter of getting everyone to comply with it. They also took everyone's temperature on the way in, and there are now screens just like your screen for your computer that you stand in front of, and within 2 seconds it gives you your temperature and whether you're okay or not. If everyone tested okay, they got a paper wristband that just said that they had passed that test, and they needed to do that every day of the conference. So they were checking each day to make sure that nothing had developed.
But wait a second, in that case, you got a bracelet when they checked your temperature, correct?
Correct.
So why did they let the people in that didn't want to wear a mask? It's the same thing.
They let them in wearing a mask, but they would take the mask off. It was a matter of enforcing keeping the mask on that became difficult. And they did try to do that too. They went around in some of the sessions, and since it was in Texas, I think they used a y'all need to mask up type of attitude in order to kind of make it a little bit more fun. And it was not a huge problem, but it was still noted that there were some people that were not wearing masks after they had entered.
So let me ask you something. I know the hospitality and events industry we are like an indicator of the economy based on some of your some of the things that you've taught us, and how many the hospitality industry, how many people they employ.
Yes,
Because we are the third in the whole nation of employment, right?
that's correct. That's correct. As a matter of fact, we break it down even a little bit more. The number one employer is healthcare. Thank goodness we have that right now. The number two is the beverage and restaurant business. Number three, in terms of employment, not GDP, but employment. Number three is hotels. Number four is events. So three of the top four have to do with the hospitality industry. And the hospitality industry has unfortunately been hit harder than any other industry by the pandemic. The last I saw about a week ago, 54% of the people in the hospitality industry had been laid off. that explains, and I won't say justifies, but it certainly explains why people are anxious to get back, and why I try not to be too critical of them wanting to get back. But if we hurry this along, what happens is that we just set ourselves back. It's like one step forward and then three steps back, and that's my concern.
So moving forward, we're moving 6 months forward, and there is a vaccine. There is a vaccine. What are the changes in the curriculum that you're envisioning for
Well,
next semester?
let's start with the changes in just the events world itself. One of the things that has been changing, was changing before the pandemic, is the whole idea of how we take in information. And this has to do particularly with conferences and conventions. Cisco says that 80% of the information that's on the internet right now is video. It's not reading, it's video. We are developing a society that is extremely visual oriented rather than reading oriented. And with that development of video, we begin getting into more symbolism and storytelling and metaphor and simile. And the events of the future, I believe, are going to have to be more geared towards storytelling. They're going to have to be more clear in what they're trying to convey. We're going through, as someone said, I wish I could tell you who, but someone said that we're going through in the events industry much what playwrights went through in the late 40s, where they were no longer taking their plays to the stage, but they were taking them to television. And so there was a whole different, it was the same story, but it was a whole different way of conveying that story via theater or via television. We are needing to be more proactively storytelling, and a little bit more in the way of production. If you think back to 9 months ago, just having a Zoom meeting seemed like a miracle. Now, if we attend a Zoom meeting and it doesn't have a little bit of music or intro or production value to it, we notice that. And I think that expectation of greater production levels is going to be something that future events are going to be judged by.
I think that you sounded like when they were in the book that I read of Walt Disney, when he said that everything was storytelling.
Yes,
And
that's right.
storytelling was going through all the rides. So I think that that's what's going to happen eventually.
That's one of the things that we're stressing more in our event management courses now, is a thread that runs through the whole thing, that ties everything together, so that it's not just a matter of logistics, of making sure that the catering is taken care of and the stage is taken care of and the entertainment is taken care of, and they all belong. What ties them all together, and what is it that people are going to remember? The other thing that I think may happen is that we were using technology a lot in meetings and in events. We used that at the South Beach Wine and Food Festival, for instance. So it's not just meetings where you're sitting in a room and looking at a screen. But the technology will continue, but it's not going to have the kind of the wow factor that it had before, because we've become pretty well adjusted to all the technology. We are going to be looking more for interactive type of opportunities rather than just a technological wow, like a three-dimensional projection or a holographic projection. All that's great, but that's not going to carry the day like it used to. We need to be making things more personal and more interactive. And that's going to be a challenge for people who've been producing in one way for 20 or 30 years.
We're going to have to concentrate more on the content.
Yes. Yes,
that on the little toys.
that's right. And the things like music segues, transitions, uh, how an event flows uh, is going to be more harshly judged than it used to be. Uh, and that's probably a good thing long run for events, but it's going to be an adjustment for people who have been mostly logisticians. That's the way you say that word, logisticians on putting all the details together. Now we are needing to know more about technology, but we're also needing to know, and I think this is the area where events people have a real opportunity opening. We need to be more guest services oriented and thinking about the guest experience, not just that everything is going well, but that the experience is all tying together.
But what you're talking about is what, for example, what I used to do when doing an event. It was the whole experience.
It's true, and I think that the focus is going to be even more so. Plus, the things that we used to be able to use as tools are getting elevated a little bit more and more so that we are needing to be a little bit more personalized. Uh, they are talking now or discussing now, doing now, I guess I should say, uh, individualized gift bags as people leave an experiential event. Uh, that's something that we weren't able to do 20 or 10 years ago because we didn't know the individuals well enough. We are able to now individualize the attendees' experiences.
Personalized each one.
Yes,
Everything is in the details.
it's
Even if
you
it's
have to love details. Yes.
so, one other thing that I think has been a positive part of this whole experience is that with personal events, there was a cost involved in traveling, in bringing in the speakers, in coordinating all the logistics that had to do with a conference. Now we can actually access a whole globally. We can actually access more people now. So we
It's
can
true.
of events, not only personal, but we can also do it virtually where we can bring in a lot of the people.
And and if we have someone who is either very expensive or perhaps as a security issue, uh, Prince Charles is an example of this. He has taken to doing a lot of guest appearances for conferences holographically. So we don't have to worry about security because if someone were to take a shot at him, he'd only be taking a shot at a shadow.
Or the cost of the people taking
That's
travel
right.
in.
The whole entourage that would come along, how long they would stay, and so forth too. So there's our there's a lot of exciting things that are on the horizon. The other thing that this does is it allows us to be a little bit more sustainable too. So if we're doing a conference, we don't have to fly people in from all over the world. We can do regional hubs, and they can go to that hub for a lot less carbon footprint than flying all the way to, say, Miami to attend a conference. And as a matter of fact, we are working on we're going to be introducing a sustainable tourism degree at FIU in August of 2022. And in order to kick that off, we're looking at a sustainable tourist summit that would be linking 6 cities together around the world. And each one would have a 3-day conference as a part of it. All 3 days would be run concurrently, but we'd also be able to loop in via telecast guest speakers from one area to another area to another area. So it allows us to have virtually a nonstop 3-day event. Obviously, some people are going to have to sleep sometime, but we have something going on in Bangkok, which is exactly 12 hours different from Miami, and we can record that, and people can see that at a later time too.
It will be kind of a sharing content between
Yes,
6 cities. That's pretty cool. What I've been finding that's really fascinating on the creative part is the virtual stages. Like the other day, I did the filming of the recording of one of my events for the Power of the Heels, and it's creating the whole stage that you can do this, and you can, the day of the airing, we can bring in somebody that's not actually there, and we can bring that person to be part of the event that was not even part of the recording.
isn't it amazing? You can do that seamlessly, so that the viewer would not even know.
Correct. And if I don't like the floor, which is black, I can change it to white.
Yeah,
And that's the part that, from a creative point of view, it's really pretty cool. Before it had to be, we had to do all the logistics and getting the vendor to bring the black stage or the white stage with exactly everything. Now we can literally edit it to
we,
make it look like we like what we
we,
want.
we've been using maybe a little bit different terminology, but that's basically what a TV producer has done for a long time. They've been able to snap their fingers and do that. Now we are reaching that point of being able to do that in some cases too.
Yes. That's so. What happens, because I know that we're running out of time, what happens after the vaccine, that we have the vaccine, we're back to normal? Are we really getting back to normal
Well, that's
with events
some
and
of
stuff?
what we some of what we were already hinting at, I think, because I think that the format is going to be a little bit more produced. It's going to be more video oriented and less written oriented in terms of conferences and conventions. There is going to be probably a for conferences, it's probably going to be shorter time frames of content uh, intermixed with some kind of break or entertainment. They are calling it the festivalization of conferences, and it is making the entire conference an experience of which the learning is a part. But so much of the learning that goes on at conferences or has gone on at conferences, we are able to convey technologically now. The biggest part of conferences is becoming the networking, getting to know each other, getting to become acquainted with one another. And so conferences are going to have to be more consciously designed for those kind of networking opportunities.
That was my last question. How do we virtually change the conferences to meet the people? Because the networking is a huge part of what the attendees go to a conference.
It really is. An application that we're working with right now for this 6-city sustainable tourism summit we're working with would allow any attendee in any city to be able to video connect with anyone else in any city. So part of the registration process would be, what are the things that you're interested in, so that we can give to people who are attending. These are people who are interested in the same things you're interested in that you may want to be connecting with. The difference between this and a phone call or a FaceTime is that you're not necessarily having to provide any kind of contact information. So if you and I connect and you just don't find that I have anything to offer you and you don't want me following up with sales calls to you or anything like that, I don't have your email. I don't have your phone number unless you want me to have it. So it allows us to connect without, uh, basically without committing to each other as far as the information. Uh, but that also, the other side of that is that there's, we hope, this is what we'll be finding out, I guess, but we hope is that uh, you'd be more willing to reach out to me because, okay, if it doesn't work out, I don't have this jerk following me around electronically contacting me all the time. It's up to me whether the connection is made or not.
But in the positive side, if you are connecting the people with the same interest, or you can do like a wish list on who I want to meet, that's even better. Because we get to a big conference and we don't know where the person is, how do we locate it? You are now locating that person for us in a much simpler way.
That's exactly right. It seems like it has both benefits. It maintains that control that my information isn't going out to everyone and their brother that I may not want it to go out to, but it introduces me to the people who have similar interests. It could, and we haven't pursued this yet, to be honest with you, but it could also list the people who are in leadership positions in the areas that you're interested in. So that it would also introduce, these are people that you may want to get to know.
Correct.
Uh,
I don't want to get to know anyone, then I'll just put like a do not disturb.
yes, yes.
And that would be
Uh, so
our positive changes. I remember our first conversation with Jeff Green when David Adler said we are innovators. And look, 8 months after, how much we've come in the event industry and how far we've taken this.
isn't it amazing? Even with all the shutdown that we've had, there's been a lot of advancement, and uh, uh, I think more is promised on the way here. And the challenges that the current pandemic presents to us. I am a believer that the vaccine won't end every problem, but it will make us all a little bit more comfortable so that we are um, willing to get back to socializing face to face again.
Correct. And I think with that, I really thank you so much for being part of this.
It's been my pleasure. I hope it's been helpful. Thank you.
So I hope that everybody that's watching us will learn from this. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us. And you can ask us questions through my Facebook page. And you can also look for Professor Cormany at FIU Chaplain Hospitality School. And please stay well and be safe.
Amen.
Thank you, everyone. Until next week.